Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
We're not here because we're free. We're here because we're not free. There's no escaping reason, no denying purpose, because as we both know, without purpose, we would not exist.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
My God, it would be beautiful.
This is the World Magic Movement. Tonight's episode, Adde Invictus. Hello, this is Saul Ravencraft, and I am talking to S. Rob.
Hello, S. Rob here.
You've wrote another book.
I have, yeah. I actually got to the 400th book, which is called Rasputin Magick. But on this book, because it's the 400th, and because of some other things which happened, I've decided to put the name Invictus after my name. So my name on this book and the other ones after this is S. Rob Invictus. So that's the name I'm using now.
Now, S. Rob Invictus is an entity that we've worked with before.
That's right, and I do feel I'm closer to him than ever. But there's actually a very strange reason behind why I've added Invictus on as well. So it's a suffix. It's not like the name. It's something after the name. Okay, but it is an unusual thing because I don't know if you know this. I actually wrote a book called Occult Escapology: Humanic Possession, and occult escapology is when you're using escapology within an occult ritual. That's something I invented. And also humanic possession is when a person can possess a devil or demon, which I also invented. So I put these both together and created the book Occult Escapology: Humanic Possession. And basically speaking, as I said in that book, I was going to contact the Vatican. Because when I wrote the first book about humanic possession called Satanic and Demonic Command Power, I tried to contact the Vatican, but all that I could get was the Vatican News. That's the only contact that I get. But this time, Saul, it was very different. I actually got Vatican emails. Emails direct to the Vatican itself, and one worked.
How do you know that it worked?
Because I got a reply. And this was the strange thing, is basically I thought tact is the order of the day. So I thought, so I sent actually sent the ebook version of Occult Escapology, Humanic Possession. I sent them the ebook, which maybe wasn't such a good idea. Okay, so, and this is the email for, like, priests, so I explained that I'm not a priest, okay, and I sent them the ebook, and basically the reply I got was that I was an idolater, which, to be honest, it would confuse me a little bit, because Occult Escapology: Humanic Possession would allow the Vatican to beat hell. See, my plan was, if you can possess the devil, then we just get a load of archbishops and bishops and people, and we just line them all up, and we just keep going round, and maybe one person doesn't argue as Lucifer, then somebody else does, and then that means then we've effectively then, beaten hell. We've beaten evil, I was taking a pat on the back, but that isn't what they saw. The thing is, though, in my books, I don't actually worship those beings, so I think the adultery thing is incorrect. But an interesting thing happened after that, okay? After that, a being appeared that was... In fact, first of all, actually, I'll do the full explanation. First of all, I had this strange vision, okay? And it was all about light and darkness and all this sort of thing. And it was really being instructed, but I realised now that vision was mainly there to try and mislead me. It was to try and mislead me, and then there was a white being appeared, which I couldn't really see much of it. And I remember, a little bit vague here, but I was told that if I escaped, that I would be erased, basically. My soul would be erased, which means I wouldn't just not exist, as in not be alive, I wouldn't exist anyway. So obviously, being the sort of guy I am, I left the bedroom, as you would do, because basically I wanted to test the theory out. Because the way I looked at it is, most people assume that they finish when they're dead anyway. So I thought, well, it's not really much of a threat, you know what I mean? The way I looked at it as, if you're the signet, it's basically just going to be, that's it. Well, that's not really a big thing, is it? Really, it didn't seem to me. So I went out of the bedroom and I thought, well, this seemed fairly easy. And then there was some other entities downstairs. I think they looked a bit strange. You can't really remember much what they looked like. I think they looked a little bit, they were white, but like greyish, but very different. So I can't remember much about them really. It's a bit vague at this point what the faces looked like. But basically speaking, it was the same thing, you know. You cannot escape. If you escape from here, you will be erased. So of course, what I did was then is I summoned Papa Legbert to make a doorway, and then I just escaped, and that's what I did, and that was no problem. And it wasn't until much later on that I realised that basically somehow I was dragged back. So I think from about the 1st of August is when the curse actually started, more or less. I think that's a date there. But it changed gradually. At first, it was just like, because I don't think I was in full on in hell. I think I was actually within a demon as well, I was within Moloch. Didn't know that at the time, because Moloch is sort of an ancient god or demon. But basically speaking, he was created through these large metal bulls. And what they used to do is people used to put sacrifices of people, sometimes children even and babies, within these bulls. And there would be a fire below it. And of course this meant that the heat would build. And the terrible screams of pain would come out of the bull, and it would sound like a bull mooing instead of the screams of pain. And this basically created Moloch. That's what you're talking about, essentially. So I was within there, but didn't realise at first. So I'm walking around here. It hasn't like I've disappeared. I'm still here. But I'm actually seeing a slightly different world. So at this point, I am seeing things dirty when they're not. And that was it, you know, things that, and they're not dirty. Slowly it got worse. And then it was one night, it was the 20th, I think it was. Okay, I'm trying to time this out. I think it was the 20th. And it's on a night. And I have like a large picture, a lot of it's black. And a lot of time I can look in there and see my usual spirits walking around, you know. I have my usual lads around me a lot of the time, Saul. You know, like the man who walks backwards and forwards with a big long stick, and, you know, I'm used to seeing them. I'm used to them being there. These are people that the spirits are like to stick around with me, you know. Combination of demons and, you know, ancient gods who just seem to like to be around me a lot. And I was looking in and I thought, these aren't my usual guys. And I'm thinking, my usual guys aren't here. These guys are not my usual guys. And a lot of them look grey-ish, like grey alien-ish, not exactly. And one of them had like a very rectangular face, but it had like a cloak. So basically, and then at this point, I'm trying to remember, this was the point, yeah. What they said then was the same thing. If you escape, you will be erased. So at first I just got rid of them, you know. I was just drawing lines on my leg to send them away. And then I took Guinevere, which is like a stick I use in rituals. And it's got a skull head on it. So I had an idea. So I said, destroy, kill. And I'm just like pointing it at them, the skull, and they're just going. Okay, so it worked very well. So I was thinking that's really good. I thought you could probably kill tens of thousands of these like this, you know. Problem was solved. So I went back to bed again as normal, you know. Curses are not unusual in my world. So, and then the next day, I had inherited a demon wife. And then there was another thing, somewhere before that, I think, or between that, there was this whole thing about once you escaped, if you escaped 3 times, you were raised, because basically speaking, they didn't expect that I would try to escape. And when I did escape, and they knew that I escaped, I think they seemed to lack intelligence. They seemed to be just driving on a set of rules. So they're basically not intelligent at all. But when I inherited this demon wife, and to be honest, Saul, sorry, I get the name wrong. To be honest, Saul, she looked a little bit undead. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, don't think so. You know, I don't think she had any interest in me either. I think I won her when I had killed the other one. So I thought, and then it came to me. Basically in the morning, I thought, that's it. these aren't demons, these are inter-earthers. And through the look of them, I realised it. Because I'm part of a society in Brazil which has in their estate a hollow cave which leads to the hollow earth, so they say, to these inter-earth aliens. And so it is said, when you see an inter-earth alien, your soul is within with them because they cannot escape, they cannot get out of there. They have to stay inside of there. So, I made a gateway using Pat Legba, walked through the gateway, things were fine. I did this a couple of more mornings, but that was pretty much it really, but it took a while to get out, you know. But I didn't know I was in, that was the problem, you know. But it was at that point I worked out that it was Moloch, because I've actually gotten people out of Moloch before. But it does have an interesting thing. It means that these inter-earth aliens, as people think they are, and some of these other aliens, aren't actually from another planet. And they're not actually from inside the Earth. I think what you're talking about is, in reality, beings that were created by being sacrificed to Moloch. So what you're talking, unfortunately, Saul, is that the children and adults that were sacrificed to Moloch, that have been in there a very long time, and so are being transformed. And that's really the terrible thing about this, is that, you know, all these entities, people think they're evil and things like this, that these entities anyway are actually simply the leftover parts. These are the leftover bits of the people that were sacrificed. That's a really terrible part of it. But after that, a little after that, when I hit my 400th book, that was why I took the name Invictus, because I thought it makes sense, you know, invincible, you know, unconquered, unconquerable. So I put that as a suffix after my name. So now it's S. Rob Invictus, and it also adds power as well, because I feel closer to S. Rob Invictus. And that actually made me wonder. I thought, this is the point, as I feel closer to S. Rob Invictus, did I actually survive, or am I the second S. Rob? You know, because it's an interesting idea. There's still an S. Rob Invictus, and he's still, you know, a separate entity in some ways, but he feels closer now. So that's the thing, did I actually get killed at some point? In this whole, you know, curse, well, not actually killed, and this is the second me, I feel like. Because if it is, it's fascinating, really, isn't it? It's but the interesting thing is, though, the society is one called the 100. And they were always said to be linked to what I will call the Vatican. Some say they can, I would say they can't. And they actually were the people that cursed... oh God, I'm trying to think of the guy's name now. But anyway, he was a great occultist, this guy. Franz Barden, that was it. And it's a terrible story of the guy's life, actually, because basically he was a person who refused to join Hitler's occult society. So he spent time in a concentration camp, which was bad enough. But when he left and all World War II came to an end, the 100 did not like him at all, because he told people about them. And at this point, the Vatican was actually backing the Nazis through World War II. So whether they're linked to the 100, we can't really say for certain. Okay, and this whole thing, you know, they hunted the guy down. He went to prison. He didn't do anything. Did they kill him? Who knows? You know. So it is a very strange thing, isn't it? Really, but it seems odd though that someone within the Vatican in an email would call someone an idolater for not worshipping an entity. Because it seems to me, if that seems to be their official position, it means that all celebrities are idolaters. They're raising themselves up before the Lord. Cartoonists, you know, they're making cartoons. Kids could be reading the Bible when they're reading comic books, you know. You could just go way far with this. It means really that at this point, if this is the way things are, that they basically seem to be at war with maybe not the mainstream religions, but all other beliefs. It's a very alarming point of view. But it is a good thing, though, that to look for the disco music, because I found something very interesting. Within Moloch, disco music is like a dangerous drug. I know this sounds funny, but if you listen to too much disco music and you're within Moloch, you feel like you're stoned for 3 days. Seriously, it's just like you lose 3 days. I mean, okay, that's good. You can do that on the cheap now. You just need disco music. But it is just like you listen to disco and you're stoned. Because I have to do sometimes research, obviously, and you're doing books. And sometimes I've done books where I've suggested people do rituals to music. So what you end up doing is, you sort of know these songs anyway. So I would end up listening to short little clips of disco music. Saul, I lost 3 days after that. You know, I mean, I was just stoned for 3 days on disco music. You know, and that's all it was. I was just eating and drinking my regular stuff, but it was the disco.
So, is there a particular band or song or something like that seems to work especially well?
It was a combination. You know, I did the one there, some of the Wild Cherry ones, Saturday Night Fever. It was just an overview of disco, you know. It was the overview of it. It's just disco itself. It's just in combination, I think. Just go through the tunes. It's country music seems to be safe there. Okay, if you're within Moloch, country music is your best bet. You're okay with that, you know. Patsy Cline, you know, all that stuff, you know. You know, even the songs from Smokey and the Bandit, there's no problem there. But disco music, it's not, you know. Funk as well, you know, like the Rasputin songs. It's just, you know, just say no. That's what you've got to do.
Well, I'm glad that you're safe, or we're not sure what's going on with you at this point.
Well, to be honest, I'm quite happy where I am, you know. It seems fine here. Because there was one place I walked through where it was very bright, and I thought, this isn't for me, this place. It was like it was really bright, but the bad stuff was worse. So I thought, no, thank you very much. I'll stick with the place just a little bit darker. You know, the right place for me. But yeah, it is weird, you know. But it's interesting, though, that I got to the 400th bookmark just after that. Because the strange thing is, I don't know if you know this, but some people have the theory that basically I am Moses, that Moses is an ascended master, occultists like me basically keep going round. So, and they say that my soul is Moses' soul. Now, the interesting thing about this is, Moses walked through the desert for 40 years, and I finished my 400th book just after that. So that's a weird situation, isn't it, when you've got the Vatican attacking, or maybe not the Vatican, but because let's be honest, it could have been some other group that got the email. It could have been some of the group that were hacking them or something like that. So have to be careful about that, okay, to be honest. Got to be careful about the link. But it is weird, you know, that, like I said, that's another similarity, because I always think that, okay, this thing about different souls and occultists going round and round, I always think, you know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I'm very much me. And then you look and you think, wait a minute, 400 books, 40 years through the desert, you think, this is like a hell of a coincidence, you know what I mean? And it all aligns with this, and you think, and this is very odd. Yeah. I mean, obviously speaking, I think he could probably have chosen a better person to put his soul in. I mean, I'm not a bad person, but I'm thinking, really, I would probably have chosen, you know, Elon Musk. That would be a good person, wouldn't it? You know? Richard Branson. Give yourself a head start, you know? Make it easy on yourself, you know?
Now, are you concerned about any sort of follow-up, any repercussions from the book you sent to the Vatican? Or do you think that they're just going to leave it with a critique?
Well, to be honest, I actually thought it was great, because at first you feel a bit weird, and then you get out and you think, you know, it's like, do you know the thing from the old Ghostbusters, where someone gets slimed, and the ghost is saying, actual physical contact, you know, it's a different thing altogether. I don't really get scared anymore, I get fascinated.
Sure.
So you're thinking, this is really great, you know, I'm thinking, this is fabulous, this is, you know, new place. Because obviously now that I've done this, and I'd done it before, like I said, to get people out. I told them what to do, but I thought, this is great. Now I've essentially got a holiday home whenever I want. If things get that too bad, I say, you know, I'll just go into Moloch for a bit, you know, come out, slip somewhere else, you know. I don't have to travel around the earth anymore. I can travel up and down, you know.
Well, congratulations on reaching this milestone with your writing. How do people get hold of your books if they want to read them?
Well, you can still put S-Rob into Google and S-Rob into Amazon. At the moment, the book called Rasputin Magick, it's easiest to put Rasputin Magick with a CK in. Because I didn't work out at that point that you have to put S. Rob as the first name and Invictus as the last name. I didn't work that out. But well, we'll do for all the other books, but you can still find it there. It's doing quite well, actually, and that's an interesting book as well, because it wasn't until I saw the picture of Rasputin that I realised that, because Rasputin has quite an unusual face, and this is a weird thing, I didn't realise that I had seen Rasputin, or a guy that looks a lot like him, before all this stuff. You know, so whether Rasputin give me a helping hand here, you know, but it's the thing, because I saw a guy that looked like him, I just thought, it's just another biker, you know, he looks a bit like that. And now I'm looking at everything, but that was actually that guy. That face was Rasputin. But I don't think he was linked with this. I think it was more he was there to see me, and he's thinking, yeah, well, we'll see how he handles this, you know, see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah, but it is interesting.
Well, I hope that there aren't any repercussions. The connection with S. Rob Invictus is both exciting and disturbing at the same time, because he seems to, he's a different sort of a fellow.
That's the thing. I thought, strictly speaking, that's what I thought. As I've taken his name, I thought, was I spurred on to take his name because the other S. Rob died? I always thought I would, you know, integrate myself within him on death. I thought, but did he integrate himself within me? You know, because if you think about it, if there was an all-out attack, okay, they only used one demon, I sent 3,000 entities back at them, which means, yes, that does mean they were outnumbered by one man, which is sort of embarrassing for them, I suppose. But that's what I thought. Because I thought it's interesting, because if I had actually died in there, S. Rob Invictus would just help me take over my vehicle, as it were, probably put me back in again and then left. Which is the same thing that basically happened, except that, you know, I did it. So when you think about it, there's no way they can actually win. You know what I mean? If you look at it, you think in that particular situation, that way, there's no way it would win. I also don't think they realise that they basically based their curse on my book, Occult Escapology, Humanic Possession. So they based their curse on something about escapology. So they were always on a losing ticket from the start, really. But, you know, I think, some of these people are working from a 660,000 page, 1,000-word rule book. And you're always going to be in trouble when you do that. Now, I wrote well in excess of that, as you know, but I don't actually write rules. Because what tends to happen with rules is you tend to get trapped by them. So I don't really do rules very much, you know. It's just so I don't get trapped, you know. I can do whatever I want, you know. But I do feel it feels like a milestone, you know. I don't think they realise this was all supposed to line up. This had to line up so that line up just before the 400 book, so that things would work out correctly, and then the 400th book would come out. Because I think it's like a rebirth situation, because that's what I tend to do. Instead of like some people do, where they tend to get defeated or even die, I tend to be reborn. So if something really bad happens, I just change and I become reborn again. And of course, having the name Invictus, the suffix Invictus, now means that I have more power than I had beforehand. So my power has greatly increased from what it was formerly.
Well, as long as you only use your powers for good.
Absolutely. That, of course, and cola.
Well, thank you, S. Rob. Congratulations on the milestone.
Okay, great. That's a lot.
This is Saul Ravencraft. I'm talking to S. Rob.
Hello, S. Rob here.
A while back, we did a caper.
We did, yeah, we did an astral armed robbery. We stole the Buddha's tooth. In fact, there was a lot of possible locations which said that they had the Buddha's tooth, all of which had some power. So we nicked all of them. We took all of them and we put them within one tooth, which I have with me here. I'll just open the box up. And that's it, yes, so I have the Buddha's tooth now. I thought it was tactful not to contact Sri Lanka because apparently whoever has the Buddha's tooth is their king. And I thought, they have an army, their current king will not be happy. So I thought I'd just leave that one. Yeah, which I think was a very good idea.
Sure. Now, we both experienced some effects after this.
That's right, yeah. I mean, for me, I found that putting the Buddha's tooth right next to the Spear of Destiny that I stole using the same method and put the power of the Spear of Destiny in my spear. Putting them right next to each other, it didn't seem to be that good. What it seemed to happen was it seemed to enhance the spearness of the spear. So I really felt really tired when they were right next to each other. So I've got them separated at the moment. You know, it seems putting them together is not a good thing. And it seems the power seems to combine. But I know that you had some challenges in your life as well, you know.
There were a few things, I won't go into them because they're more of a personal nature, but yeah, there were a few negative things that just came up. Suddenly, connections with people became disrupted, and there was just a good deal of negative energy that I had to get through. I think things are in a pretty good place right now, because I recognized it for what it was. You provided me with an additional ritual that I did a few times to help settle some of that down and make sure that everything was properly closed down. But yeah, there was some odd little effects after that. It was a little troubling.
Yeah, that's actually similar to what happened with the Spear of Destiny, the spear I have, because I actually put a guy's picture under that. And he was a priest at that time, but he got made into an archbishop and then set up his own church called the New Catholic Line of Judah Church. You know, and he's canonized some people and some historical figures and things like this. And I don't really think that was something he was planning at the time. He wasn't planning on setting up his own church. You know, these things seem to put us on the right path, but it isn't always the path that we were on, you know. But it seems to be a better one. But so yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is I suppose just through fate, the tooth that I get to put it in actually is on a string, and that means that the Buddha's tooth basically can quite easily be used as a pendulum, so it can predict things, you know, answer questions at least. You know, and that just feels a really interesting thing. The fact that I've got this connection basically to Buddha that can answer questions. And nobody has done that with the other teeth. They just had you know, whether they were right or not, they just had the tooth itself, where this is actually it's on a piece of like black rope, and it's got like a silver bit around it. So it's literally a pendulum.
Well, and I've worked with a pendulum fairly regularly. I've also worked with talking boards, glass, turned glass moving, that sort of thing. And you and I have talked a little bit about different modes of working with the pendulum that are not just yes, no. There's lots of ways that you can do it.
Yeah.
That will help you communicate more accurately without having to always play 20 questions. So hopefully that will be useful to you.
Well, yeah,
the pendulum makes perfect sense to me, but I would also have you consider just doing sort of psychometric work with it.
Yeah.
To hold the tooth and to just feel what you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I must say when you hold it, you do feel like a connection to somewhere else. You know, you do feel like a connection to some far off place. It's like there's a tunnel, is what you feel, like a tunnel of light, literally. And it's like you can see it when it's in your hand, and when you're holding the rope, you can't. You know, and that's a really weird thing. But I thought we'd ask it some questions. I thought that's a good idea because, you know, start off with a few simple yes/no questions. Because I did notice that when it goes yes, it goes round and round, and when it's no, it just keeps going up and down. So we can do that quite easily and get some sort of feedback. You know, anything you ever wanted to ask Buddha, you know, we'll give it a try.
So, are we going to do this live? We're going to record this?
Yeah, we do this live, yeah.
All right. So, you asked me to consider things that I want to ask the Buddha's tooth, and that's a tall order.
Yeah, it is,
I guess it's not like the Disney genie lamps where you just get 3 wishes or something like that. Now, are these just questions that we ask? Can we ask for something beyond wisdom? Is this something that is it an oracle that gives you answers, or is it something that gives you power? What is the correct application of the Buddhist?
To be honest, I thought the best way is simply to start off by asking it some simple question, things you may want the answer to, but things that aren't really predictive. Things that are more about insight that may help us to understand how the world works, you know? I tell you what, why don't we ask it straight away something about, is moderation the only good path? Because that seems to be a big part of Buddhism, isn't it? Is it the only good path, moderation? And I'll see what happens there. Because that's an interesting one, okay. Well, it's going round and round, Saul, so that's a yes. Now, I was actually thinking there may have been another one there, but no. In Buddhism, you know, the best path is a path of moderation, and that is exactly what it says, you know, moderation. So it doesn't. There's no other good path as far as the Buddha's concerned.
You may have already done this, but something that I feel is very important with a pendulum, doing any kind of pendulum work, and I still do this myself, even with things that I've used very regularly, and that is to calibrate. In a couple of different ways. One is to ask the pendulum to show you yes, to show you no, and show you that it can't answer.
Yeah.
And confirm that the movement that the pendulum gives you is what you think it is.
Yeah, I've actually just done that. I'll do that now.
The second thing is to ask it questions that you already know the answer to.
Yep, did that.
And confirm that it is giving you accurate answers.
Yeah, good.
The next phase is to ask it questions that you don't know the answer to but can look up.
Yeah.
And confirm that it's giving you correct answers. And at that point, I think you've really prepared yourself for what the pendulum can do. You have likely already done these things, but I wanted to go through that so that anyone listening who may be working with pendulum work can understand that it's not, you don't just pick it up and take whatever you think it says. So there is a certain amount of tuning and calibration that you need to do. And every once in a while, it's good to retune and just confirm that the emotions are the same, because they have been known to change.
Yeah. The thing is as well, though, is that people shouldn't think that the pendulum makes their decisions for them, that they have to do what it says. Okay? You know, it's still your life. Because I know that I have trouble with some people whereby the pendulum says yes, so they feel they have to do that. But no, if you want to do it differently, it's your life. Do you know what I mean? And that's the important thing. You still have your own freedom, you know, to choose what you want. Yeah.
Well, the way I describe that when I talk to people about different forms of oracles that I use, I work with things I see in their palms, I work with cards and pendulums and a number of different techniques depending on what people are trying to achieve. I try to get them to see it as a road sign. Imagine that you're driving along the road and you see a sign that says Surrey 25 miles. Now, you may have all kinds of reactions to that. You may think, oh, wow, I can't wait to get to Surrey. Don't know why, but that may be the way you feel. You may be confused, pointing in the wrong direction. There's all kinds of reactions you might have. What the sign is telling you is that if you do nothing differently, in about 25 minutes, you're probably going to be in Surrey. But you're still driving. So you can slow down, speed up, turn around, ask for directions, pull out the map. get out of the car and leave it behind. I mean, whatever you decide you want to do is still under your control.
Yeah.
What the sign is telling you is the direction you are pointed in under the current circumstances. You change the circumstances, you change the energy you give it, and then everything changes.
Yeah, it is true that, because otherwise you do get people who use them as decision-making devices, and I don't think that's the way to go. Like you said,
right.
It's a tool to help you. You know, do not work for the pendulum. You know, the pendulum works for you. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah.
in this case, though, we are working with something that has a considerable amount of power. It should have some wisdom to it, I would think. So I would say this is a little different than hanging your wedding ring off of something.
I would agree, yeah, this is a different thing. Because what we're really hoping to get is to get insight from Buddha. That's what we're hoping to get. You know, and it's something we can use over a long length of time as well. We can use it any time we want. So I'm trying to think of another question, something interesting. But we'll stick with yes or no's for the moment, you know, because we can get it to use the alphabet and go through like that. But that would take a long time, I think.
Right. I think that will be difficult to do in a live recording. That may be something we do under other circumstances. Maybe we'll do a separate session sometime and give people results after we edit it down a little bit. Yeah.
I'm going to we'll ask it about, do immortals exist? Okay, that's a good one. Okay, and we'll see what we get there. Yeah, that's weird. I get a yes, but it took quite a long time to move to yes. So there's probably not that many immortals. So in a way, that's telling us that it's a yes, and it went right the way around. But it seems to be saying, but there's not that many of them. You know.
Was there any other kind of movement before it gave you the definitive answer, or did it just pretty much begin moving immediately with its answer?
It was just an up and down, and then it changed. So it just went. I put it, and it was going up and down, and then it changed quite fast. And then at first it was just an up and down. I thought, this isn't moving. This is saying no, and then it changed. So that's an unusual thing for a pendulum to be that. You know what I mean? To behave in that way. They normally start to change gradual rather than it just holds its position and then it changes.
Right.
So,
well, I think one question that many people are concerned about is whether or not our world is headed toward another great war.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to straight up and down, and I'm hoping there's going to be no. Okay. Oh dear. Oh, it went in a circle. And I was hoping it wasn't going to go into a circle, so that's a yes. I was hoping
so it went against what
no.
you were wanting, which sort of demonstrates that you're not just having it say what you want to hear.
No, because I was hoping it was going to be a no, and it was for a while. It was up and down, and then it changed. I thought, oh, geez, do not go. Do not say yes, but it did. It said yes. But like I said, that isn't something that we can't change. It means we've got to change it. You know?
Right.
How do we change it? If we're nice to each other, does that make a difference? It sort of does, but it's not going to be enough, is it, really? I suppose that we can do it through social media. If we start to contact more people from different countries, then that would be more difficult to have a war, you know?
Well, there is that, but I will also have you consider things like the transcendental meditation experiments that happen. If you look into the history of transcendental meditation, you'll find situations where they went in particular areas where there was violence. And together as a group, they meditated for peace. And they observed a drop in the violence and the crime in the areas that they were focused on. And so there is a way that we can simply, by channeling our own energy towards something we want, like peace, as a group, as a community, to change that vibration.
Yeah, because I agree with you there, actually, because it's difficult to do anything else unless you've got a large number of people. Because, let's be honest, the United Nations wouldn't really listen to us. The politicians are doing their own thing.
Well, and social media right now is in a mode, I don't know if you've noticed this, but it seems like every conversation I see turns into some sort of a debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I put a post up that says I like eggs, I'm gonna get argument. Which there is no argument about whether or not I like eggs.
Yeah, it's like if
it's a thing.
Yeah.
But the argument becomes whether or not you're supposed to like eggs or whatever. People just seem so primed to some sort of debate, some level of winning, rather than just exchange, exploration, understanding. And that vibration is what leads you into a mode of constant conflict. And as that ripples up, well, of course, that's going to turn into conflict at the highest levels. And the fact that we have people at high levels that are engaging in social media and engaging in this kind of conduct that's certainly part of the problem, I would think.
Yeah. It seems as well, though, that there seems to be a lot of doomsday watchers. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it seems like everyone's counting down to the end of the world. It seems like
right,
that, you know.
Right, like they can't wait.
It is, yeah. It's like, okay, most of the world's religions are doomsday cults. Because basically most of them are. Apart from Hinduism, they're all counting down to the end of the world, the end of days. And because of the problem with the ecological system, and because of the problems with asteroids, people know asteroids hit the Earth now, and there's a big one supposed to hit in 2036, which if it doesn't hit, it'll come very close. And basically, the problem with that is everybody, or most people, seem to be on the side of it happening. They want, we're going to have this doomsday cult at the end of the world. Why would you want the end of the world? We're all on the world. we don't want the end of the world, you know. Okay, if someone else has got another world to go to that's all finished and we can all move to, that would be okay. But you know, we're on the world. You know, we do.
Well, and I think part of what is happening there is just a level of exhaustion. Right now, so much of our energy is being usurped. I've made this joke about this, feeling that there's a basement somewhere in Washington where a bunch of black-robed figures are standing in a circle and soaking in all of the energy that we give them. And yes, it's a joke, but there's also a level of it that is serious in that we do give a lot of our energy to other people. We give a lot of our control to other people, deciding that, you know, these wealthy people, these elite people, these government people, they get to decide, they get to control. And just as we were talking about with the Buddha's tooth, that is never the case. They only have what we give them. And the more that gets turned into this attitude of helplessness, the more it gets turned into this attitude that there is no control. You just got to prepare yourself for whatever is going to be handed to you. That takes away our ability. It doesn't take it away, but we stop using our ability to control what we're trying to do and to manifest what we want to do. And it's not that you're powerless. You turned yourself in. You gave up.
Yeah, you're right.
You
yeah.
chose not to manifest what you wanted to, and what you don't use, you abdicate.
Yeah, that's part of the thing I'm worried about, is that if this asteroid comes very close to the Earth, all these doomsday cults, which people call religion, and all of these people who are very negative, counting down the days to the end of the world, are they going to drag it closer? You know?
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. If they drag it closer, they're going to take all us with them. You know, don't get me wrong, if they want to all go and they want to go on a big ladder or stay away to heaven, that's fine. I'm going to stay here, thank you very much. Because the thing is...
go have your own doomsday.
That's right, yeah. Because the thing is, if you look, a lot of these books, a lot of them have got this, of your religion, they've got a similar setup to the Bible. Now, I don't go into the Bible very much, but I thought the Bible could be this big elaborate trick. Because I thought, if you were Loki, right, who was a trickster god, you know, a Norse trickster god, but if you were Loki and you were going to make a book that was a trick, how would you do it? And I thought, what you do what you got in the Bible. You'd have 660,000 words, and you put all the stuff you really need to know in the first couple of pages and the last couple of pages. Because if you read the Bible at the start, it's God creates everything, so basically the God they're talking about, I mean, yes, it's a bit of a generic name. They don't really say who he is. But there you go, God, and he creates everything. He is omnipotent, so he controls the whole lot, and yet somehow humanity gets to sneak out of the Garden of Eden by doing something wrong, and he didn't know it. That doesn't make sense. Okay? And also, one important fact which nobody talks about. In the Garden of Eden, humans were gardeners. Okay, so we were gardeners at that point. Now think on that. We were gardeners, but we had no choice about gardening. Okay, now the only thing I can think of similar to that is a plantation slave, is the only thing I can think of in history. But we managed to get out, we get thrown out, so, okay, things are going well. And then, at the end, if you're being good, you get to go back up again. What happens, Saul, if we get there and he says, okay, great, there's a shovel, right? There's some mulch. Just keep going in that line for 1,000 years, turn back round again and do this other one there. Because if you look at the book, that's what it says. You know, you're in Garden of Eden, you're a gardener, you've got to do all the gardening, yeah. You get thrown out and then you go back again. Look at it, you think this is a really, really cruel trick is what it is. You know.
So, thinking about the idea of people calling a doomsday to them, I wonder about things like the legend of Atlantis. Is it possible that Atlantis was a place that called its own doom to it?
Yeah, that's actually very likely, isn't it? Because if you believe that there's going to be a doomsday, I think most people assume if you do that, then you'll sort of keep it away. I don't think you will. I think to a certain point, you start to attract it to you. So you start to do things that will cause it, and you start to affect the environment and things that will cause your own destruction. You know?
Well, this sounds like a good question to pose to the tooth.
Okay, so what was the question exactly you want to ask?
Did Atlantis call its own doom?
Did Atlantis call its own doom? No, I'm getting a no for that one, Saul.
Well, that's a shame, because that would have been very comforting, actually.
It would.
That would suggest that someone who had a doomsday attitude might just call it upon themselves and leave the rest of us alone.
Yeah. That's the problem, isn't it? We're all sort of on the same rock. You know, if they could just cause it a one little place and say, great, we could just sort of get them all to go one place. This is great, we're going to put everything you want here. Yay. And they'll just all naturally want to go there. And the whale just say, this will be great, it'll just be a big wave and they'll be very happy.
Oh, well.
Yeah, well, never mind. But, you know, that's the thing though, isn't it? It's the idea that you got these doomsday cults, and it's the end of the world. How is this so great? Not just do we live on the world, but it's also supposed to be the extinction of humanity. But why would that be a good thing? You know? It's okay if you're not human. I am human. You're human. Why do we want humanity to die off?
Well, I think it's a sort of global depression. I think that people have lost touch with their own energy. I think they've lost touch with their own joyfulness. And it's created a condition where people, while officially they go, well, no, I'm fine, we're happy, that underneath it there's a desire for everything to just stop. That they're just too tired, too exhausted, too unhappy, and that there just seems to be no point to it. That's the sort of feeling that comes up from depression. And if you look at what people are talking about, how many people have you noticed talking openly about how depressed they are? Yeah,
quite a lot actually, you do, especially as the years roll by, don't you? You do, yeah. The thing is, it worries me is the people that don't talk openly about it. Because I've also heard of people who thought they were happy. Hey, look, I thought he was perfectly happy. And then they just kill themselves. And that worries me a lot more, to be honest.
Right.
I know it's a bit off topic, but that's more worrying. Because people tend to keep it to themselves a lot, you know. A much bigger problem, yeah.
But a lot of our spirituality has turned into a mode of not really celebrating, but criticizing. Even the so-called New Agey kinds of things are very market-driven now. And of course, as you know, marketing is all about convincing you that there's something wrong with you so that you need to buy something to fix it.
It is largely, yeah.
Right? Because if you're perfectly happy, you don't need to spend that money. You can just sit and sip your tea and enjoy the flowers and be perfectly fine. You don't need to consume. Yeah. But if my livelihood depends on you having spiritual holes that need to be filled, then I'm going to do what I can to point out to you that you have a problem. And I think a lot of our spirituality is twisted in this weird sort of market-driven approach to things. And of course, the more established spiritual bases respond to that, because the competition, if you will, gets people's attention because of their marketing, and so there's counter-marketing. And it's put us in a very, very weird place where people have lost track of their own power. They've lost track of their own ability to create a peaceful, loving context for themselves.
Yeah, it becomes an identity problem as well, because I think a lot of unhappiness comes from people not being their true selves. And to be honest, the New Age sort of subjects, not occultism, that's a separate sort of thing, but the New Age things have very much become a part of that, whereby they're trying to sell you a different version of yourself, you know?
Right.
It becomes about, you know, like for instance, Tai Chi doesn't become about Tai Chi, it becomes about a lifestyle choice, you know? And you've got, you get to be this guy by doing it. And, you know, if you do yoga, you get to be this guy. And
gotta have the yoga pants.
Exactly, yeah, and it's not about any of those things. It never was. It was never about.
Can't do yoga in your Bermuda shorts.
Exactly the problem. It's like a lifestyle thing, and they're trying to peddle you a different version of yourself, where in reality, people are unhappy because they're being told they have to be somebody else. You know, I know that's not really our problem. We're in the situation where we are being our true selves. But most other people aren't, and they're feeling this terrible pressure to be another person. And it's a terrible, terrible pressure to be under for people. It's awful. It really is.
Well, and the hell of it is our ability to transform ourselves is one of our greatest powers. We talked about the transformation that's happened with you as you've grown closer to Rob Invictus. I have gone through my own transformations as I have embraced the path that I am on and embraced my own capabilities as a wizard. And your ability to look at where you are and what you are, not that we're a thing, but sort of the vibrations that you have around you, you can change that anytime you choose. It may take effort, it may take time, but you never have to stay as one thing. It's not like the old class descriptions where you were born this, that's you forever till you die. We have this ability to transform. That's one of our powers. And this whole approach has sort of perversed that. It's perverted this idea into someone else dictating what you need to change into. And it not being something that comes from within, the phoenix rising from the ashes, it becomes some other sort of manipulated version of that. And you end up using your power for something that isn't really yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's got so bad how you've even got nerd culture. And that's a method of control. Because at one time, if you were outside of the popular kids, the popular people, you could pretty much do what you wanted, and that was the advantage. And now there's not, because there is a standard you've got to be if you want to be a nerd. You have to be a nerd in a certain way. You can't just be a free-wheeling nerd just doing what you want. You can't just go and just read what books you want to read. No. You have to do things a certain way. There are certain standards now.
That's right. You had to be the right kind of outcast.
Exactly. You have to do it the right way. The thing is, though, when you know people, anyone who you know who is being their true self, and you look at they're always that little bit bigger than life. And the reason isn't that they're larger than life, it's that everybody else is one step down from who they should really be. Right. It's this whole thing, we've got to be this other guy. Why? Because the boss says you've got to be this guy. But that guy's not even your boss, he's somebody, there's somebody else as his boss, They get locked into this terrible system where you have to be this for this person, and for this person, and we all have to be sensible. That whole idea of what is sensible. Like somehow to give away your entire life, your personality, everything you want to do is sensible. That's the reverse of sensible. That's not what you should be doing, You have to be your true self.
Right.
But it's just a means of control, isn't it? It's a means to control large amounts of people so we can make them all the same. But it doesn't work because we're all made of different stuff. We're all different inside, we're not the same.
Well, and I think that the people that are attracted to this program are people that understand that, people that are ready and willing to embrace their own observations, to not connect with the world the way that they are supposed to connect with it, but to connect with it as it is, as they see it, as they experience it.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the things that we should ask the tooth, and I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but the problem with anything that gives you yes-no answers is generally the questions that we really want to know are things like how.
That's true.
How do I do this?
Exactly.
Not can I do this? Of course you can. How do I do this? What do I do next? And we end up going, well, should I do this? Can I do that? So somehow I'd like to pose to the tooth how the efforts of the World Magic Movement community can help to change this global vibration that feels most comfortable with war and conflict and doom.
Okay, I think the best way is just to hold the tooth. I think that's the best way, because I can't think of any way of making that into a yes or no. So I'll just hold the tooth and see what I get. Okay. In fact, I'll get a scrying mirror and I'll hold the tooth and get the scrying mirror, and I'll just tell you what I see. Because I very much doubt it's going to be.
Yes, that's perfect.
I very much doubt it's going to be easy to interpret. Okay. What I see is a flower. It's got a large centre to it sticking out. Change the direction of the flower. It's opening up. There's seeds coming out of it, like spurting out. Okay. I'm seeing that it has roots, and the roots seem to be going down into the earth, and they seem to be spreading out as well. And that seems to be it. That's what I've got back. So it seems whether it's about put more out, it seems to be more, as in, you know, I'm thinking getting things out is probably, you know, reach out to more people. And the other part, again, is spread out. It seems to be just a matter of, maybe we should post at more places. You know. Yeah, but maybe it's about people. When you think about it, I suppose maybe the things coming out aren't ideas or content. Maybe it's people. Maybe we need is to find a way to try to get more people involved, you know. Little things for people to do.
Well, and I also think that talks to the individuals as well. I notice for myself that some people in my social communities will put out a lot of stuff, a lot of negative things about what are going on. Oh, I'm so sick of dealing with those haters. Oh, yes, we're with you. We love you. Gosh. Everyone just kind of rallies around, oh, I'm feeling so unhappy about this, that, or the other, and everyone just kind of floods in there. And every once in a while, I'll get confused, and I'll post something like that. Gosh, I'm having a terrible day. I'm so worried about this sort of thing. And the response I get is not a big flood of love and invitations and all that. It's basically, suck it up, buttercup. And I think the reason for that is that people don't necessarily see me as helpless. I don't radiate helplessness. And so when I do that kind of thing, it does feel disingenuous. And I think that that's a mode that I developed. I think I have moved from a position of being a victim and being powerless to a mode where I radiate much more control and competence. And so the idea that I'm going to whine about something is silly, because I've clearly demonstrated that if I want something differently, I change it. And I can change it. So why am I whining about it? And I think that is something that is available to everybody. If instead of radiating, putting out your fear, your anger, your doubt, rather than putting that all out there all the time, that you can put out more about what you want to manifest and what you are manifesting. And by simply shifting that focus to what is wrong, treating yourself like a problem that needs to be solved, and focusing much more on what are signs that it is working, what are signs that things are moving in the right direction, what are signs that you are not helpless and hopeless, that changes the vibration. And if more and more people are involved in that, if more and more people are comfortable with that version of themselves, that it changes all of the vibration. And I'm not talking about that 1950s, 1940s approach of just pretending like everything is fine.
No.
Right? That there are no problems. But actually a mode where you become more comfortable, more confident, more knowledgeable of your own ability to make things happen.
Yeah.
That becomes the mode. The more we all do that, the more that vibration gets out there. And then the people that are focused on this doom and gloom, the people that are helpless, begin to look weaker.
Yeah, because the thing is, for these people, complaining becomes something. Do you know what I mean? Where it becomes actually a constructive thing. The idea of not really complaining to somebody, because it's different if, say, a company's done something wrong and you lodge a formal complaint. That's actually a constructive thing.
Right.
But with the idea that simply saying things aren't right becomes, like, as itself should be a solution, but it's not a solution, you know? Where your way of thinking, my way of thinking, we're more focused on, you know, how do we make things better? Where otherwise they get stuck on the cycle where simply complaining to somebody is somehow in their mind a constructive thing. That's something that will somehow fix it. And it doesn't, you know?
Right. And I see so many people, they get into this sort of virtual mode here. They post something about an area that they're worried about, and typing hugs with asterisks around it is not the same as giving someone a hug.
No, it's not, is it really? No. But,
and we have moved into this weird kind of a mode of sort of sign and counter sign. Oh, I'm going to send you love and light. And there's a huge difference between me saying, hey, S. Rob, I see that you're struggling right now. Here's a virtual hug. And me saying, hey, let's go to the pub.
Yeah.
Let's go spend some time on this. Now, of course, having a big body of water between us makes it more challenging for us to just go to the pub together. But there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't connect with each other with our own fine beverages in front of us and have a very similar conversation.
Yeah.
Human to human.
Exactly, yeah. People get locked too much on, like you say, the asterisk thing. They sort of, we put little, you know, the little X's and all this sort of stuff, rather than the actual content of what it's actually about. You know, it's a sort of shallowness, isn't it? Where we just have to put a little thing, and then that's that done.
Right.
It's really the same thing, you know.
And in a different mode, the way that someone would show their concern for you, show their willingness to help, is, you know, they'd bring you dinner. They'd invite you to dinner. They'd do something that relieved you of a little bit of that pressure. Not a big thing necessarily, but a little something that relieved that burden for you. And we have, it's part of that whole thing of sending the energy elsewhere. A friend of mine is a mortician, and her emphasis is on the celebration of a person's life and helping their existence to move forward in whatever way is appropriate for them and whatever way is comfortable for the family. And one of the things that we've talked about is how in the past, actually in the relatively recent past, historically speaking, if you had someone who died, you would lay them out, you would wash them, you would dress them, you would, as a family, do some preparation on your own for this. And now we just call someone for a pickup, like their dirty laundry.
Yeah. You're right, yeah.
And our level of separation from all of that, on death and illness, and you know, in the past when someone was entering into dementia, which is not a brand new thing, it used to happen. Grandpa would come and live with the family, and he'd be weird and unusual, but that connection with the family was an interesting dynamic. Now he goes to the special home, and we visit him once a quarter.
Yeah. You're right,
and those are such vastly... Now, that's not to say that there's not value. There's medical care and things going on in those places that's genuinely helpful to those people. But we're not as accustomed as we used to be to taking personal responsibility for these things.
Yeah, I do see that a lot. You're right. Yeah, people they don't get involved like that, do they? At all. People just don't.
And if you're not personally responsible, then you can't do anything about it.
That's right. Yeah, there's very little you can do, is there? It is. It's
right.
That strange thing, isn't it, about progress? In one way, people thinking, well, if we put him here, that's going to be, be properly looked after. But at the same extent, it distances people so much that they stop being a part of people's lives. I've known other people that have done it differently, where they've been in a home, but they've actually, when they can, if they're people same age, also advanced in age, where they've actually slept there a lot of the time, as much as they can, so that they're with the person. So that they're trying to, and it's difficult, of course, for these places to accommodate that, because they've then got 2 beds instead of just one.
Well, it's not expensive to get a camp cot.
That's true. Yeah,
it fits easily in the boot of your car.
Yeah, it is tricky for people, isn't it? But again, it's the idea of the concept of doing nothing versus doing something.
Right.
People feel pretty good doing nothing now because they can con themselves into thinking that they've done something.
Well, you're a specialized part of the machine. You shouldn't be doing anything but what you do. Well, you're not qualified. You're not competent. It's being handled by top men.
Yeah, it's that whole idea, isn't it? People become more and more specialized. People knowing more and more about less and less. Eventually, we will have people that know everything there is to know about absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Just takes time. But it is, I know what you're saying. It's, you're not supposed to be involved, but I just think it's the idea of doing something versus doing nothing. Don't get me wrong, I know there is times when it is best to wait, when it is best not to act, but I think most of the time, you're better doing something rather than nothing.
Well, and I think that is a key there, in that some of what we have been moved into is we're supposed to do a lot about things that are way outside of our realm. We have to be socially shouting about this, that, or the other. This person did that thing, therefore you have to do all of these actions, post all of these things, repeat all of this stuff as part of the social reaction to that, while you ignore the things that are right there in your own lap, in your own backyard. It's a shift of our understanding of what our powers are.
Yeah, I have actually noticed something interesting, that some of the young people seem to be moving away from online. There seems there's like a subgroup that have just decided, this is okay, it's here. We want to do things in the world. So there is a set of people that seem to have opted out, and they've said, okay, we get all this Twitter and all this Facebook stuff. We've sort of opted out of that. And they seem to just think, no, we're going to do things, We're going to actually do physical
society
things.
Society has a pendulum that moves back and forth. And you'll see this in history, that there are cycles that happen where people become very community conscious, and then they become more self-conscious. And that the pendulum that the middle is the point where things seem to be the most productive, where there's a good balance of everything. But what it'll do is it'll move in one direction. So World War II was very community conscious, right? Those people were very focused on getting things done, taking care of each other, having a society that was productive and prosperous for everybody, and doing whatever it took to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that actually Winston Churchill summed that up perfectly. He said, in World War II, he said, cooperation is more important than competition. And I think he summed that era up very well there,
But then what happened was that pendulum continued to swing in that direction. And the 1950s are a little bit more of a parody of that, in that the self is you shouldn't do anything that goes against the community. You need to you need to just hide everything and just be part of the machine, and everything is, you need to be assimilated. You need to show everybody that you are a full-on conformist, and that really went too far.
Yeah, and then it's
the individual sort of died on some level in exchange for having a pretty community. But then that pendulum reached its apex, its peak, and it started to swing the other way. And in the 60s, people started to recognize the individual more, and become more concerned about that. And the community, they passed through the whole community idea, right? It was still looking at the bigger picture. And then we swing all the way over into the 80s, the me generation, looking out for number one, which is sort of the extreme, almost parody of that perspective. Yeah. And then that pendulum starts swinging back the other way. Yeah. And you'll see that with all kinds of things, not just self-interest versus community interest, but many other kinds of things are connected with that, where it swings back and forth, maybe not always at the same speed. And so what you're describing with young people having a different desire, having a different connection, that's the movement of that social pendulum.
It's very much like they used to have this game that people used to sell, and it was basically a ball on a string. I don't know if they had them in America or not. And people used to stick them in the yard, or they used to stick them in the garden. And basically what people used to do is they used to hit the ball that's on a string as hard as you possibly can. You'd say, yeah, I've hit the ball in the direction I wanted to go. And then it would come right the way back and hit you in the face. And that's basically what people do. And it's what a lot of lobby groups do. They just think, we want to go this way, we're going to hit that ball as hard as we can. And it goes so far and it comes back and hits them in the head. And it's just, it's futile. Sometimes things you have got to think more intelligently rather than, it just said, the swing from one to the other,
Well, and that's an interesting analogy that you bring up, because kicking the ball as hard as you can, that's quick, it's efficient. It certainly sends that ball in that direction, and then you're done. But under those circumstances, the better thing would be to pick the ball up and carry it to where you wanted it.
Yeah.
And to take that whole journey yourself, not just fire and forget. And we're not as accustomed right now to carrying a load for any length of time.
Yeah, it seems with strange times that we live in, because I see some people who seem to be making the best of the times and of the assets that are available, but there's other people I see that tend to be like a lot of off-split groups, There's a lot of people seem to be losing individuality a lot. But it doesn't seem to be that you don't seem to have the combined community you used to have. It's a strange time. It's like things have in some ways have splintered, and yet in other ways they're all doing the same thing. Because of its strange nature, it seems like it's a control. Like this is a conscious thing to control people. Because, like you said, things normally go like this, like a pendulum. But at this time, it's like you've got these separate groups that aren't really separate. And you have people, as you said, people sort of fighting it out sometimes. And people sort of fake, saying how fake hugging each other and things like this, But it seems like a method of control. Because a lot of things right now, like,
it's all the same note with different octaves.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're not allowed to say certain things, a lot of things are politically correct. And it seems that's still a thing now. And it's not about stopping people saying certain things. I think it's stopping people from thinking certain things. Because if you don't say something long enough, it alters how you think. And that's what I think it's really about, trying to alter how people think. Because there's people now don't even know that occultism exists, that real magic is a subject. That's not to say they have to believe in real magic, just they don't know that it actually exists, you know. And yet, to the same extent, there was something reported in the news that was about saying that almost 50% of the people in Britain believe in witches. They said vampires. I think it was all. I forget what the other was. I think it was all occultism or magic. But that's not really the shocking thing. Is the other 50% don't, because as you know, a witch is simply a word for an occultist. You know, and by the modern the old definition, probably everybody would be a witch. So the fact that it's alarming that less than 50% of people in Britain don't believe that witches exist when they know they do. And a vampire, really, that's just an extension of demons, really. Because that was the other thing. It wasn't magic, it was demons was the third one. And the thing was, most of the religions have demons in them. So there's nothing really strange about that, and the concept of an alien and a demon are very similar to each other, you know? They're not necessarily that separate. But it's the idea that it was any three of these things, which means that there's over 50% of people don't believe that occultists exist. They don't believe that people perform occultism or do witchcraft or any of these things. Which, how could they not know that they exist? It's a very, very strange situation. But, of course, the newspaper portrayed it very much as if it was, oh, no, this is strange. All of these people, but witches exist. It's just a word for an occultist, you know. I certainly exist. You exist, you know.
Well, and I think what the tooth has told us is that if we continue to look to masters for our direction rather than into our own souls, that it will continue to descend into chaos. And I hope that our listeners will begin to show more of an example of taking the inward light and shining it outward. Not worried about your own shadows and eliminating all of those, but worrying about the shadows that are out there that need to be illuminated.
That's great. My name's Rob. This has been Saul Ravencraft, and this is the World Magic Movement.
This has been the World Magic Movement with Rob Invictus and Saul Ravencraft. Production design by Mythmade Productions. Produced by Rob Invictus. Music, A Dark Blue Ark by Pipe Choir. Find them at freemusicarchive.org. This program is licensed for sharing under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike 4.0 International. For more details about usage and sharing, see links in the program description or visit creativecommons.org. This program is licensed 2016 by Werevamp Media Limited. Production design by Mythmade Productions. Produced by Rob. See program description for additional links to guest sites and supporting information. Music, A Dark Blue Ark by Pipe Choir. Find them at freemusicarchive.org. This program is licensed for sharing under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike 4.0 International. For more details about usage and sharing, see links in the program description or visit creativecommons.org. This program is licensed 2016 by Werevamp Media Limited. See program description for additional links to guest sites and supporting information. See program description for additional links to guest sites and supporting information.